The gas station sat on the edge of town, a lonely outpost surrounded by endless fields of corn and darkness. Its flickering neon sign buzzed faintly, casting an eerie red glow over the cracked pavement. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1980s, peeling paint, rusted pumps, and a sign that read, "Help Wanted," in faded letters. I needed the job, desperately. My car was on its last legs, my bank account was empty, and I had nowhere else to go. So when the manager, a gaunt man named Greg with hollow eyes and a voice like gravel, offered me the night shift, I took it without hesitation. "Just one thing," Greg said, sliding a crumpled piece of paper across the counter. "You gotta follow the rules." I picked up the paper, my eyes scanning the handwritten list. Never read a receipt that prints on its own. Burn it immediately. Never accept money from a man wearing sunglasses after midnight. If the clock on the register skips a minute, unplug the printer and look away. If a receipt prints your name, leave immediately. Do not look back, I chuckled. "This, some kind of joke?" Greg didn't smile. His bloodshot eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment I thought I saw something flicker in them, something dark. "Follow the rules," he said, "or don't. But if you don't, you won't last the night." I shrugged it off. Weird rules, sure, but it was just a gas station. How bad could it be? The first few hours were uneventful. A couple of truckers stopped for gas, an old man bought a pack of cigarettes, and the radio played static-filled country songs. I started to think Greg was just messing with me. Then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the printer in the back room roared to life. The sound was wrong. Too loud, too sharp, like something alive was shifting in the walls. My breath hitched as I turned toward the doorway. The printer kept spitting out paper, a long curling stream of receipts pooling onto the floor like an overgrown vine. I remembered the first rule. Never read a receipt that prints on its own. Burn it immediately. I grabbed the lighter from under the counter and crouched down, my hands trembling as I lit the edge of the paper. The ink moved, shifting like it was trying to escape, before curling into blackened ash. The printer groaned. The lights flickered, and for a moment, the air felt heavy. Wrong. Then it stopped. I stood there, my heart pounding, staring at the burnt remains of the receipt. Something about this place wasn't right, but I needed the job. I couldn't afford to walk away. At 3:03 a.m., the bell above the door chimed. A man walked in, tall, thin, dressed in a black trench coat. His face was hidden behind a pair of pitch-black sunglasses, even though it was the middle of the night. My stomach dropped. Rule number 2. Never accept money from a man wearing sunglasses after midnight. He approached the counter, his movements too smooth, too deliberate. He slid a $20 bill across the counter. His fingers were too long, too pale. "Pump 6, he said. His voice was layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. I swallowed hard. I can't accept that." He didn't move. The sunglasses hid his eyes, but I could feel him staring at me, studying me. The air grew colder, heavier. "I said pump 6, he repeated, his voice sharper now. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "The station's closed." He exhaled slowly, the sound making my skin crawl. Then, without a word, he withdrew the $20, folded it neatly, and tucked it back into his pocket. His head tilted slightly, like he was considering something. "Next time," he murmured. And then he was gone. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting for it to skip a minute, but it never did. The printer stayed silent. The man in sunglasses didn't return. By 5 a.m., I was exhausted but relieved. I had survived the night. Maybe Greg's rules were just a test, a way to see if I could handle the job. Then, as I was counting the cash in the register, the printer whirred to life again. I froze, my heart pounding as a single receipt curled out. I didn't want to look, but I had to. My eyes
The next night,
dropped
I
to the
returned
inn,
to the gas
my
station,
stomach twisted,
my nerves
He will be
frayed
back.
but determined.
I told myself the strange events of the previous night were just my imagination, a combination of exhaustion and Greg's creepy rules. But deep down, I knew something was wrong with this place. The night started quietly, just like before. A few customers came and went, and I kept my eyes glued to the clock, waiting for it to skip a minute. It didn't. The printer stayed silent. I started to relax. Then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., the printer roared to life again. I rushed to the back room, my hands shaking as I grabbed the lighter. The receipts were spilling onto the floor, the ink dark and smudged. I burned them one by one, the air growing heavier with each flame. When the last receipt turned to ash, the lights flickered and the radio crackled to life. A voice, layered, distorted, spoke through the static. "Laura, you can't run forever." I slapped my hands over my ears, but the voice didn't stop. It grew louder, more insistent, until the radio cut off with a deafening screech. I stumbled back to the front counter, my heart pounding. The register beeped, and I turned to see a new message on the screen. Final balance, 1 life. My stomach churned. What did that mean? Before I could think, the printer whirred again. I grabbed the receipt, my eyes scanning the words. "Settle your account." The bell above the door chimed. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, thin, wearing a black trench coat and pitch-black sunglasses. It wasn't the man from the night before. It was something else, something worse. Its head tilted, at an impossible angle, its mouth stretching into a too-wide grin. "You owe the toll," it said, its voice layered, distorted. I backed away, my hands trembling. The register beeped again, the screen flickering. "Choose." The figure stepped closer, its movements too smooth, too deliberate. The air grew colder, heavier. I could feel it pressing against me, suffocating me. I grabbed the lighter and flicked it on, the tiny flame casting jagged shadows across the figure's face. "Stay back," I choked out. It didn't stop. Its grin widened, its teeth too sharp, too many. "You can't run," it whispered. "You can't hide." The lights flickered, the station groaning like it was alive. The aisles stretched, the shelves bent, the walls closing in. I stumbled backward, my vision tunneling. The register beeped one last time. Shift complete. The figure lunged. When I opened my eyes, I was standing behind the counter. The gas station was quiet, the lights steady, the air still. The register screen flickered. Employee record updated. Name, Laura. Shift, permanent. I turned toward the front door, my heart pounding. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. Just me. No figure, no sunglasses, no escape. The bell above the door chimed. A new shift had begun.